Hey everybody, Dr. Brian and Heather here, and we're excited. Well, if you can't tell, I'm excited, right? I'm ready for beach, which is coming up here. We're flying out Saturday, so we're really excited. And a lot of my kids and their families have vacations planned here in the next few weeks. And so I thought, transition stuff. You think vacation, you think fun, you think whatever you're doing, right? We're going to Charleston, so we're going to go see ocean, all that fun stuff. It all sounds fun and exciting, and it is. But routines get upset. There's all sorts of things that we're throwing a bunch of curveballs to kids, and the routines get off and all that stuff. And look, the kids want to have fun, you want to have fun, but sometimes that change, even on vacations, can be a lot for us, right? Lot for them, lot for us. So let's talk about this a little bit. Transition points are always tough for kids. Getting out of school, going back to school, holidays. There's a lot of stuff that can change in a few days. And so let's talk about this a little bit. Heather, do you ever see that? We're all pumped for vacation, and then we come back, we're like, we were gone, and it was a vacation, but it was a vacation sort of thing. You know what I mean? So talk to me a little bit.
For sure. Oh, I mean, it's everything you just said. I mean, kids need predictability, and it feels less predictable. A lot of kids rely on I know what we do when each day, and it makes my world make sense. Time blindness, not having a sense of time, and so all the uncertainty, a lot of frenetic running around to get everything together, and sensory overload, getting off of eating foods in abundance that sometimes you might be trying to limit. A combination of all those things, sleep cycles that get off. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And so, a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, at least in my thought process, is going to be stuff we've already said, but it's a good reminder, right? Because, even for me, right? I know this stuff, and in my head, I'm like, I need to be prepped for this because my kids, my nephew's going to be there. So we're going to have the excitement of the nephew. We're going to be different location. Our sleep schedule is going to be off. We're flying out at 6 a.m. So what was I thinking when I picked this? There's a lot going on here. And so let's talk a little bit about this. Let's first talk about struggle with prediction, because I think that's such an important thing in this. And how important is it, or what should you take into consideration for somebody who struggles with prediction, and kind of giving them an outline of saying, hey, you know what, this is the plan, right? It may change, but this is kind of the plan. Is that an important thing, or should we just I'm kind of a wing it person, but my wife is like, Brian, what are we doing Monday morning? Okay, so we have two different personalities, but is that important for somebody who struggles with prediction to have a little bit of an outline, or maybe a more detailed outline for what's happening?
Yes, it's very important. It's good to start doing this in advance and then reviewing it daily or every couple of days, depending on your particular child or teen, about the outline. It's also good to sit down and have a family meeting, and everyone has a voice on this is where we're going, and what are all the options? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And already kind of working out some of the compromises and making sure that some of what everybody has said gets incorporated to the extent possible. But then, if they're going to see people, even if they're family members, if they're going to see people they only see a couple of times a year, pulling out pictures and reviewing memories, like happy memories with this person, so that people also feel familiar. But doing that all along is great. And one thing for older kids, in line with kind of prepping in advance, I talked the other day about making learning fun, and executive function abilities, planning and organizing and attention and memory, all those kinds of things. Tell certain kids what a certain portion of your budget is, and have them look up what some of the options are and figure out, they start understanding compromise. And if we do this, that means we don't have the budget to do this, but giving them some agency in that, so that you're just not saying, no, we can't do that. Also, they are kind of using some executive function and planning, and give them a couple of tasks to do to prepare. They will feel more prepared. Their brain is working on what we're going to be doing by them doing a couple of steps that are developmentally appropriate for them also.
Yeah, I love that. And especially for older kids. But, I think one of the things that I love that you said was, what do you want to do? Because in my daughter's mind, we are going to the beach every day. Okay. So, and that's great. And I want, I love that she's excited about that, but setting, expectations, but also hearing what she wants to do. Right. So she feels part of the planning portion of it, right? Is very important for her. Yeah, hey, Tim, we are going to go to the beach. Yay. Okay. So I love that. Especially, I think some kids don't feel heard in what they want to do. or they feel like they're lost in the background, like, and sometimes they can become very quiet about that, or they can become louder about it. I've seen both of those, but especially those kids who become quiet, they don't sometimes they don't feel like their voice is heard. Like, I really wanted to do this, but they don't voice that because of whatever reason, right? And so they don't feel heard. And so I would encourage all parents to, like, what are you kids really excited about? What do you want to do? And like you talk about the budget too, like, hey, we have so many days, let's figure out what we can do and what we can do with our budget. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And I just, one thing, as you were talking, I just sort of had a flashback to my childhood. Y'all, anybody who watches this know I love my parents dearly. My mom told me, and there was no ill intention in this whatsoever, but she's like, because we did not have say in our vacations. And I just said, and one time I just asked her, I said, do we ever get to talk about some options for things we can do? And she said, no. She said, vacations are for the adults. I mean, we're the ones, you're a kid. And so, I mean, she actually said that. And so even if we don't consciously think that, I mean, kids have been in school all year, they need some freedom, and some anticipation is so healthy for the brain, and having them things to really look forward to. And a voice 100%. Is always important. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so giving them a voice and what they want to do, or hearing some of their ideas, creating that autonomy a little bit, and that thought process and the prediction process, all beautiful things. Strongly encourage it. The second thing I want to talk about, because I know this is going to be a problem for me already with my son Chet and my nephew, is bedtime. Yay! Okay, so do we want to have predictability and maybe a routine? Maybe it doesn't have to be exactly the same routine, right? Like, but do we want to have a good routine during vacation, or should we just throw it to the wind and let it fall as is?
Yeah, in general, during any vacations, whether it's Christmas vacation, summer vacation, the rule of thumb is not to veer off of your bedtime more than an hour or two, depending upon the age development of the kids. We also have to keep in mind time zones. I mean, y'all are going to the Eastern time zone. Yep. And so body clock, and even knowing how that can affect circadian rhythms. But one thing to bear in mind about sleep that I don't hear talked about nearly as much as other benefits of sleep. I mean, we know it's important for mood and restfulness and all of that, yes, and health. But also, it is during sleep that some of our greatest memory consolidation happens. Kids are being exposed to all kinds of new sights, sounds, smells, touch, foods, people, places, all of those things. And during sleep, it's kind of like Pac-Man in your brain. Wonka, wonka, wonka. It's like gathering the information. We don't need that. Put that in the discard bin. Oh, wait, these pieces go together. Let me kind of consolidate that into an organized file cabinet. So then you wake up the next day not feeling like you have a pinball machine going off in your head. That is very important for regulation. And even storing memories that are part of them really growing a sense of self and belonging. And then they go back to school in the fall and they have real memories to connect to the stories they're reading. I mean, it matters for a lot of reasons.
100%. Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, so we try to generally stick within the 60 to 90 minute range. We do understand there's different time zones. You got to take all that in consideration. So I wasn't planning on asking this, but I'll give my opinion, but I also want to hear your opinion on this. I am not a big fan of melatonin. However, for a very short duration with time change, that's kind of like one of my acceptable. But I want to say this. One of the things that we will be doing is taking magnesium with us, because magnesium is a natural muscle relaxant, and it kind of helps calm the brain, the body. And, it's not like a magical supplement, but it does kind of calm them down and get them ready for sleep. So that is one of the things that we're going to try to get them to drink to help kind of calm them down in preparation around all the excitement for going and getting into that 60 to 90 minute time frame. But I would love to hear kind of your thoughts or suggestions. Do you suggest melatonin? Do you steer away from that? What are your kind of thoughts and suggestions?
There's a lot of course, as in everything we talk about, we both know there's individual situations, and every situation is unique. But in general, we know that melatonin, which is a neuroprotective chemical in our brains, is lower in general in those diagnosed with ADHD. And Brian and I, it's not about the label, it's about ish kinds of things if you have those types of struggles. But there are certain ages where it may not be safe And
Upset.
and so you have to take, consider weight and the dosage. I mean, they
All the
come in
lunch.
3, 5, 10. But another thing is, if you're not doing quick release melatonin, one huge mistake that I know gets made a lot is that is supposed to be taken 90 to 120 minutes before bedtime. And with so many things we think about 30 minutes before, on so many things we take, it's 90 to 120, or else kids can be really sluggish and lethargic, hard to get them going, or wake up kind of grumpy the next day.
Yeah, and one caveat I want to make sure that I'm clear about. I'm not going to make any recommendations for any of your kiddos or anything like that. You should talk to your pediatrician or whoever your healthcare provider is. Melatonin is really easy to overtake, especially since they're small bodies. Adults overtake it, and one of the side effects can be really severe nightmares. Okay, so just want to throw that out there. Okay, that's why we love magnesium. Okay, the caveat to magnesium, I'll be very clear on this too. It is body weight dosage. Your colon is a muscle. Take whatever it says. Talk to your healthcare provider. I'm not giving any recommendations to y'all, but with our kids, we use magnesium, and that seems to help. So, but think about that as you prep. Is that something that may be helpful? So, I just want to throw that out there. Okay. So we talked about prediction and all that fun stuff. We talked about bedtime. We talked about maybe some supplementation. Anything else that you think would be super beneficial for parents, to like a tip or trick for getting ready or during vacation?
Yeah, I would say to try to focus the instructions you give kids to the things that matter most. Like, instead of overwhelming, I mean, this is a time, like, let's decompress and maybe talk about the rules for, like, we're going to the beach. That's not something we talk about all the time. So what are some safety rules? You don't swim alone. You ask before you do XYZ, and be reviewing those things, not just what we're doing, but the safety rules associated with that, and drip those throughout. And then when you're arriving, for example, to the beach, repeat the rules that you've been sort of rehearsing and have them say it back to you in their own words, so that they understand. Not just, a lot of kids can recite, or spouses can do this too. I know I heard what you said and you quote them verbatim, but that doesn't mean it really registered. And so just, managing expectations and keeping the rules brief, short, succinct, concrete, and not just right when you're, my brain is on, I want to get my sand pail, I'm ready to go build a sand castle and play in the waves. My brain is not hearing what you're saying right now. We talk about how anxiety and stress can shut down the brain and get away from our logic and language centers, but so can excitement. That's still a heightened emotion, even though it's a positive one. And so it's really important to rehearse that when they're not distracted by looking at the ocean. Why are y'all talking to me right now? I'm ready to get wet, So, and then just, I know this is obvious when you say it out loud, but sometimes, like Brian said, we need reminders of things we actually already know. We all need this reminder sometimes, is to really keep what is this really about? What is most important right now in the big scheme of things? How much is it going to matter that my child said or did XYZ? You're training and instructing them, but right now we're focused on safety, connection, having fun, and we got to be consistent with rules, but that we also have to be flexible.
So one of the things I love is, this is a bedtime list. Ooh, here we go. So we create pictures with it though. And as you're talking about, like, safety rules at the beach, like, this would be something where they can look at, because you have to remember, a lot of our kids have auditory processing and visual, but you might want to attack it from both ends, right? Like, hey, you know what? Like, we're always wearing a life preserver, right? We're whatever you may be. I'm not going to create a bunch of safety rules here, but having that so they can see it and hear it, see it and hear it, see it and hear it. Because let's be honest, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses when it comes to sensory stuff, right? Some are more visual, some are more auditory, and so directing it from both directions, I have found it to be very effective, because not only can they see it, but they can hear it. Hey, what do we do when we first get to the beach, right? Whatever we're going to do, or when we're getting ready for bedtime, what's the first thing we do? We do jammies, right? And they can see the jammies, right? And so that is one way where it's not overly demanding on one system, for auditory or verbal. We can kind of get both systems at the same time. And ideally, it makes it a little bit easier for them to recall it and, just a suggestion, take it or leave it.
Well,
But I think it's kind of a cool idea for kiddos because they can hear it and see it.
yeah. I recommend that all the time to families. An additional benefit of that, in addition to all the great things Brian just said, is that research consistently shows us that having visual reminders like that, whether it is this is what it means to be ready for bed, this is what it means to be ready to walk out the door for school, this is what a clean bedroom looks like, match the picture, either having the list of brushing teeth, washing face, or a picture of a clean bedroom. By doing that, it is not just that those tasks start getting done more. You are growing what's called working memory. Working memory is a mental sketch pad where we hold fleeting bits of information to complete a task or solve a problem, then we wipe it clean, reload. Kids start learning details that go into the big picture. Like I have families all the time say, I told my kids 5 times to pack their suitcase, and or it could even be a daily thing. Get right. They still don't know that you have to have shoes on before you walk out the door for school. How do they not know that? We're at the end of the school year. That is a big picture details. It is harder for them. All of these discrete pieces of information feel just like discombobulated puzzle pieces that don't go together. What Brian just showed you is the picture on the outside of the jigsaw puzzle box. It grows so many cognitive abilities that then transfer to other tasks as well.
I think, one of the things I love about this too is kids can start asking questions like, why do I put my pajamas on before I brush my teeth? Or why do I brush my teeth before I read 2 books? And so you can start working through them, like problem solve. Why do you think that? Or that's a great question. This is why we do it. And it gives them the opportunity to exercise that kind of thought process or start building a bigger picture, right? And so I call it a cheat sheet, but it really can be very, very beneficial for kiddos. And so that might be something to consider. Okay. All right. I am very busy trying to get out of town, but I wanted to do this video because I think it was a great idea. And I want to give you a few tips or tricks. I've kind of exhausted the information I wanted to talk about. Anything else that you think, Heather, would be very beneficial? Heather's a resource guru, so she always says, do you have any resources? I'm throwing you under the bus here a little bit, but do you have any suggestions or any?
I think as far as tips, this is just more about customizing these to your situation. But reading books about going on trips and seeing new things, we always talk about that. But one last tip that I can't get off without saying this is consider your kids' sensory threshold, sensory processing. When we're talking about helping them understand what's going to happen, if you have kids with auditory sensitivity, it's good to talk about the ocean waves and what they sound like. You could even pull up a YouTube video to expose them to that sensory experience beforehand. And talk about, like, where does that sound come from? Make sure you have settling time, downtime for your kids before, during, and after, where nothing is scheduled. We don't want this to feel like a CEO scheduled vacation. We want to get as much done as while we're here. I mean, do you ever get back from a vacation, you feel more exhausted than you were before? But that's important for settling time. I'm getting up to my threshold. I have settling time. I get back down to where I'm not at my tipping point. Then we do the next thing. That stuff is cumulative. So settling time before, during, and after is very important. And if your kids are sensory seeking, having a sensory bin or a stress ball, pack things that are comforting for your kids. Their most familiar favorite blanket, pillow, teddy bear, things that are comforting to them also.
You bring up a good point, and I totally forgot about it, is, when we go to the beach, we're going to take a time after the beach, whatever that may be, and decompress, maybe take a nap, whatever we need to do, because, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of, heat and temperature out in the environment. I mean, I'm in Dallas, it's hot here, but it's a different environment. I'm inside most of the day, right? So it's a different environment, different sensory demand, different energy demand. So like you said, planning is great, but also plan in a little decompression, because I know my kids are going to need naps. They may not want to, they may fight me, but I'll probably need a nap. So plan that stuff in, because that, you have to think about that. The sensory, you're in a new environment, and Heather did mention that earlier, but you're in a new environment, so your brain's taking in all this new sensory input, sight, sounds, touch, taste, outside, inside. It's a lot. Even if we don't struggle sensory wise, it's still a lot. So make sure you plan in those breaks. A great idea. So.
And let your loved ones, like if you're going someplace where you're going to see relatives who aren't around your kids all the time, if you have well-intentioned input from loved ones who think that they know how to parent your kids better, and maybe they don't understand neurodevelopmental struggles. You could just talk about, these are some things that, these are some struggles we have. These are some strategies that work. So like if we're eating and they have permission to get up from the table, we've established that this little nook is going to be their settling space. Just letting people know in advance so nobody's kind of getting onto your kids for being disrespectful and getting it from the, just kind of talk about those things in advance also is good.
Yeah, 100%. And then last, actually, since I have another one, just make sure you plan water and snacks, okay? Again, a lot of sensory input, a lot of high energy demand on the brain. We're gonna naturally snack. We're naturally gonna get hungry because our blood sugar is gonna take it. That the brain consumes 20-25% of all of our blood sugar in our blood. So that's a lot. And when we're putting a lot of stress on it, and then our skin's getting more sun, right? That's a lot. You're gonna consume a lot more. So just make sure you plan that. It sounds like, well, duh, Brian, I would totally remember that. But like for me, I was like, I got to make sure I do this, right? It's just one of those things. It's another check that I have to do, but it's such an important one, especially, because we're switching time zones, our sleep schedule is going to be off. These are things that are going to alter automatically, no matter what happens, they're going to alter our blood sugar levels. And so that's something to take in too, because, it's ultimately not fair if my Chet, my son, wonderful little kiddo, but when his blood sugar tanks, spawn of Satan. And that's not his fault. He doesn't always know how to communicate. I'm hungry, right? That's just not his strength sometimes. So I say that all to say, hey, make sure you're planning that. It sounds like a no-brainer, but sometimes it's those easy things where like, I should have known that, right? That get slipped and forgotten. So, okay. All right. That is enough for me today. Heather, anything else that we could add or perfect?
I think this is good. Yeah.
That's a lot for y'all.
Hey, Tony.
Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you.
But Heather, people always want to know, how do I find out more about Heather? Where can they find you?
At The Hidden Churn on Instagram or Facebook, or Brain Balance of the Woodlands, Katy or Mansfield.
Perfect. So make sure you go follow those pages. Lots of great information. Heather also has another podcast, Tuesdays at 11.
Yes. And this Tuesday, we are talking about, I'm about to lose it with my kids, what to do. I mean, so many times we're talking about how to cultivate growth in our kids. This is really supporting parents in how to honor how you're feeling and the struggles you're experiencing as a parent, and how to handle it in a way that's going to be most constructive for everyone involved.
Perfect. I'm going to be tuning in because I'll be on vacation, ready to lose it. Probably not season, but no, great information. Please tune in. The links will be on those pages, so you can easily find them. But tune in, great information, and lots of good input there. You'll learn lots of stuff. Like I said, I tune in from time to time when I can, and I always learn something new. So, all right. And if you need to get a hold of me, Dallas Energy Chiropractic website, Instagram, all the same. Facebook. That's how you get a hold of me. You can direct message me, or call me, or text me. All right. I will be gone next week, but we will be back again 2 weeks. In the time being, there you go. Words are coming out. Make sure you go watch Heather's podcast Tuesday at 11 o'clock. You will enjoy it and you'll learn a lot. All right. Thank you, Heather, as always. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Brian. Y'all have so much fun. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Bye.
Bye.